Camp. Okay, not that camp. Camp. That's better. Camp is a mainstay in the cult film scene. You have movies such as Rocky Horror Picture Show, Pink Flamingos, and what I'll be talking about today, Barbarella. I think before we delve into how camp is implemented in Barbarella, we must first define what camp is. Camp, at its core, is an aspect of cult that holds emphasis on extravagance. Camp is gaudy, camp is over the top, camp is mostly fun, but with extravagance, camp is able to remove itself from the topics discussed in the movie, and in turn, makes the movie apolitical. I think Sontag says it best. To emphasize style is to slight context. I think camp can be more defined through examples. Take 2023's Barbie. At a glance, Barbie seems to be centered around this camp aesthetic, but it is, in truth, not camp. Barbie uses the extravagance of its setting and character design to heighten the themes of feminism throughout the movie. There is even a long speech in the Barbie world that explains the struggles of being a woman, and is taken earnestly both in the context of the movie from the characters and from the audience perspective. Since Barbie takes a stance and it doesn't fail at that stance, it cannot be camp.
Here, hold them.
Now let's take a look at drag. I think this is the most common, deliberate form of camp. The extravagance of drag heightens femininity to the point of absurdity. It does not take a statement on femininity because it is over the top. Drag is camp because it is so crazy and fun and extravagant that it can't be taken seriously. Now that we've discussed what is and isn't camp, I think it's finally time to delve into camp within Barbarella. I think the easiest example of camp in this movie is all of Barbarella's costumes. She seems to have a costume change for every planet that she visits. I would like to take a look at her first appearance, however. In this opening scene, Barbarella is essentially being born while taking off her spacesuit, while the song Barbarella plays. Side note, I think it's pretty awesome that she has her own theme song, but I digress. I would like to take a look at some of the lines in the song, however. Can't you read my eyes saying love? Whoa, you give me a cold shoulder, still I'm dying, girl, to hold ya and make love. Barbarella was marketed as sexy woman shooting stuff in space. However, in her opening song, there's no mention of badassery, as I would call it. Yes, love and sex is huge themes throughout the movie, but also Barbarella is supposed to be a savior of humanity, appointed by the president. By focusing on sex and love within these opening minutes, it removes any possibility of the movie being viewed as radically feminist, especially in a time where women-led action movies weren't really a thing. Banks seems to purposely do this to distance the movie from this impression, especially if Jane Fonda is to believe that when she signed onto this movie, she thought it was a feminist movie. By starting off with this over-the-top display of sexuality, it sets the precedent for the rest of the movie. It's absurd that the woman is essentially being born and is already in the state of objectification from the audience, and in turn makes any strides of badassery that she makes in the rest of the movie understated because of this camp opening. Another costume I would like to look at is the fur costume that she receives after her first sexual encounter of the movie on the snowy planet. This costume is impractical, and yes, all the costumes in this movie are impractical, so by saying this one is impractical is truly saying something. Let's take a look at the scene. In this scene, the costume actively interferes with Barbarella's ability to do anything. She gets caught on things and falls around, This is amplified by the way it keeps happening. The movements are very exaggerated. If this was a male-led movie, the main character would not be doing this. But camp has to remain apolitical. So instead, we have Barbarella in a costume that she can't functionally move around in, within a 1970s wet dream of a spaceship, to cement the fact that this is over the top and comedic, all in the name to show that the movie is not going to say anything. I think when discussing camp, we also must look into the villains, because if we're being honest, the villains are usually the campiest parts. The first villains we see are these dolls who attack and, I guess, try to eat Barbarella. For the plot of the film, this is just a plot point so that Barbarella can be unclothed some more, be rescued, and have sex. This is a trait that seems to be present throughout another villain as well. If we take a look at Duran Duran, he tries to kill Barbarella by giving her an intense orgasm. This in turn causes her to destroy it because power vagina, I guess. Let's take a look at this scene. Scene is not some sort of sexual empowerment, but it is rather played for laughs. Her clothes just get thrown across the room while she makes exaggerated sex noises. There is a clear distinction when sex is serious in this film and when it is played for laughs. Barbarella's sex scenes with Mark Hand and Pygar are serious. They do a traditional cut from the sex, and afterwards, Barbarella is content. This scene, along with her sex scene with the rebel leader, are played for laughs because they aren't conventional means of sex. The rebel leader and Barbarella have sex through the pills, and in this sex scene, it is essentially sex with a vibrator. However, the movie openly mocks non-traditional sex by having them fit this camp aesthetic, being over the top and overacted. It is all to amplify the feelings around sex, especially whenever it comes to non-traditional sex. The movie still has nothing to say about sex, rather than that it's good. Barbarella had the potential to say something about topics on gender and sexuality, but the zaniness and extravagance of camp essentially silenced any conversation that could be had. Yes, camp is fun and wacky, but it also can be used as a tool to create a film that wouldn't work in the confines of the mainstream, and strips it of anything of substance in order for it to be palatable to a generic audience.